Hi, welcome to the first ever episode of the AI Guardrails Podcast with me, Kuya Dev. And for today, I just want to talk about why I started this podcast. Actually, I already shared that in social media and even in Substack, but I just want to formalize it here on the first episode. We'll also be tackling a few more topics later, especially on the on the remarks of the AMD CEO about AI and its growth in the next coming I don't know 5 years. So yeah. So why did I start the AI guardrails? So like I mentioned in my other posts, it all started when I gave a TEDx talk in Davao a couple of years ago. Is it a couple of years ago? Yeah, I think so. It was in 2024, if I remember correctly. So I was invited to talk in Davao, and they specifically wanted me to speak about AI. I am not a actually, I am a software developer, I am a software engineer, but not really directly working with AI, you know. But it was an opportunity for me to actually expose myself in those kinds of events. So I said, yes, okay, I'll do it. If you want me to talk about AI, okay, I'll try to find a topic. But I didn't want the topic to be too technical since the audience is not all of them are tech people. They aren't software developers, programmers, just very few of them. The volunteers are. Apparently, a lot of them are actually tech students, IT, CS. But the broader audience of that event, the TEDx in Davao, were, normal people or, non-tech people. So I wanted a topic to talk about something that didn't require people to know a lot about the tech behind artificial intelligence. I wanted it to be rooted or grounded and, you know, would resonate with a larger audience. So I did my research, and during that process, I discovered the things that media and practically most people in AI don't really talk about, which is the adverse effects or the adverse impacts of artificial intelligence. Not only in terms of, displacing workers or replacing jobs, replacing humans. Not only in that sense, but in the way, for example, the infrastructure and how damaging in the environment it is, the amount of energy and water it needs to power and cool these data centers, and also in the way data is being siphoned off platforms like social media for the benefit of big tech. And we've seen how that turned out, right? We are currently living in a world of misinformation, disinformation, and social media companies, big tech companies, have the power to manipulate mass consciousness. Of course, they won't admit it, but if the Cambridge Analytica incident showed us, they can really do that, right? And even here in the Philippines, social media and misinformation and disinformation has been, weaponized against the people, and you really don't know what's true right now, right? What's real, what's not, and people just gobble up, and it's just I don't know. It's just frustrating, but yeah, moving on. So through my research, I came upon this book by Nick Coldry called the forget the title, but it was about what they call data colonialism. It was the first book was actually released before, I think, before ChatGPT, before actually AI really exploded. But he also released a second book, which framed now data colonialism in terms of AI, because AI won't be what it is today without data. And that's why they're calling data as the new oil, right? Because it's the thing that's actually powering, aside from energy, but it's the it's the source of AI's power. Data. Without data, AI is nothing. So yeah, it really opened my eyes into the things that have been happening, the impact, the adverse impact of AI on society, on an environment, everything. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that AI has a lot of benefits. It has been around for more than decades, and it has been providing a lot of value for humanity. But when generative AI and these transformer models, especially large language models, came out, just things just the scale of this is just unimaginable. And things are just this actually going beyond big data now. Like big data, they were thinking about data like it's going to be you would need this amount of data, let's say uh, more than 1,000 terabytes, whatever. But now I don't I don't have the number, but it's gotta be astronomical, right? There are models right now, what, in 100 billion parameters. I could just imagine. Actually I couldn't imagine how much data that would need, right? So it's it's alarming. It's alarming. So during that process, I was researching. Like I realized that, or I thought to myself, why aren't people talking more about this? Why are we just accepting what kinds of narratives big tech is providing us? Why isn't anyone pushing back? Aside from people like the Coldry, and uh, especially here in the Philippines, like who else? Who in the Philippines or here in the global South? Why aren't more people raising alarms about this? And it's again, that's why they coined it as data colonialism and now AI colonialism. It's because it's a new kind of colonialism in which data and wealth is being siphoned of communities, of a huge or a large portion of the population, especially in the global south. Actually, not only in the global south, even in first world countries, in which people's data are being siphoned as the new resource in this modern age and being transformed into wealth that benefits big tech. And actually benefits just a few people. And I was I was surprised that, hey, here in Southeast Asia, no one's really raising this alarm. Really? I mean, I know a few people here in the Philippines that I met through tech communities who are actually advocating for ethical and responsible AI. But I feel that it's not enough, especially with the scale of what's happening. This is, I don't know why it isn't scaring anyone, right? Or it isn't scaring people more. So in the months after the event, after TEDx, it kept bothering me. Uh, like it constantly, it's constantly in my mind. Like, what can I do? Well, what can I do to, you know, maybe help the cause and maybe raise awareness about the things that are happening with AI behind the scenes in data centers, right? And I realized that, hey, I if no one's going to do this, aside from a few people, maybe I should. Maybe I should do something about this. So I did research again, what things I could do, and whenever I can, I share, some information on my social media accounts. And I even enrolled. Currently, I'm enrolled in a master's or graduate program, postgraduate program on responsible AI in OPET. And I'm also actually preparing for um, a certification called AI Governance Professional, just to get myself or to equip myself with the information and the skills and the know-how to actually fight this. Not really fight. I don't want to fight AI because, AI is very beneficial. But the whole infrastructure, whatever's currently happening now, the narrative that AI should be scaled, 100x. I just watched, what's this? Lisa Su's, the CEO of AMD, Lisa Su. And she's claiming, they need to scale their compute 100 times over the next few years. 100 times. That's insane. Because the level we are right now, isn't this enough already? But we'll get to that later. So yeah, I'm currently um, equipping myself, trying to learn things, learning about AI, implementing AI models, designing my own AI pipelines through the academe, also through AIGP. But I'm thinking this is still not enough, right? Like, if I do this and really concentrate on, building my skills, there's no real outlet for me to to actually transform that knowledge and transform that skills into immediate impact. I mean, again, I have my social media accounts to do that, but I think it's still lacking, or it's still not enough for me. So yesterday, while you know taking practice exams for the AIGP certification, I came to a realization that, hey, I need to do more. So why shouldn't I just record myself you know, or record myself, expressing my thoughts about this because, just because I have very little time to actually write, to actually create content in the past few months because of grad school and all of these things. So the fastest way for me to actually express myself, to record or to put my thoughts into concrete artifacts is for me to record myself doing this instead of writing it, right? Um, so this is going to be my journal. The AI Guardrail will serve as my outlet for any thoughts that I have, for me to reflect on what's happening with AI and with AI ethics and AI governance. To maybe, hopefully establish myself as one of the voices that could, add to the conversation, let's say. Especially here in the global south, that there's very few people who are actually voicing out. So I want to be one of those people to add to that conversation and maybe, hopefully, contribute to moving the needle and adding back the conscience that AI lost. Because everything now is about profits, right? Like, it's crazy. I truthfully, like when I commented in the first post, in the announcement post of this podcast, someone left a comment and I replied that I really feel helpless. Like, who am I, right? Like, Kuya Dev, or a real name, Rem Lampa, right? Who am I? There's, what, 8 billion people in the world, and I'm just one person. So I feel helpless that I can't really impact anything or change anything. And I've come into terms with that. Like, okay, there's nothing really I can do that could create huge impact to change things. I mean, me versus, for example, OpenAI, they'll they'll crush me, right? But nothing is stopping me from expressing my thoughts and expressing my opinions through this medium and through my social media accounts. That is my right. And now that I'm getting more knowledge and expertise in the subject, it actually, I think, at least in my opinion, it provides me with some sort of authority to actually say my piece about these things, to call out the bullshit of big tech and anyone who's, hyping up AI. And also, it's not all, bad news and, gloomy stuff. I also want to celebrate things that AI is providing society. Like, I learned of this just last week, that AI is being used to actually detect landmines. And that's saving human lives. So in that regard, right, like, why wouldn't you want to celebrate AI? Because if AI wasn't there, it's going to be hard to remove landmines, right? So there's a lot of practical usage and valuable usage that AI provides. It's just that right now, especially with generative and large language models, I think at least in what I'm seeing, the bad effects are actually outweigh the good that these models are providing society. But we will I'll discuss more of that in future episodes. But yeah, that's the motivation of why I'm doing this. And I'll try to actually be minimal about this in terms of the setup of the video and the audio, minimal edits, and I don't want to stick to a schedule. I don't want to pressure myself, basically, because I have a lot of things, other things to do, and other things to worry about. It just so happened that I also need this. I need this. I need some outlet of my thoughts. And hopefully, if we do well here, and if we get to have a bit of time and opportunity, maybe we could invite other people, other experts, people who know more than me, to express their own opinions and share with us their own insights and experiences, so that we could have better conversations and elevate everyone's knowledge about the space, about AI governance and AI ethics. So with that said, hopefully you guys get value out of this, as much as I will probably get a lot of stress relief, let's say, with doing this. So let's get into the other topic, which is let me just move back to my workstation. So yeah, Bloomberg interviewed the CEO of AMD, Lisa Su, and they are actually here in the Las Vegas, I think, for the CES, which is I think I forget the what CES actually means, but it is a premier, one of the largest showcase of technology in the world. So I saw some clips and videos about on some demos of robotics and AI. But this is particularly notable since, of course, it's Lisa Su, again, the CEO of AMD. So whatever she says, it's going to have a lot of impact, and can create hype in the AI bubble, quote unquote. So she is claiming, aside from what I said earlier, of they need to increase compute to 100x because of demand, apparently. But what really caught my attention was the claim that by 2031, she is claiming, or she is predicting, that there would be around 5 billion users of AI. 5 billion users. I looked up the projected population of the world by 2031. And they're saying that they are projecting that by 2031 there would be around 8.6 billion people in the world. 8.6 billion. And from that 8.6 billion, maybe round it off to 9 billion. Of the 9 billion people in the world, she is claiming that 5 billion of the 9 billion will all be using AI in some capacity. Just think about that for a minute. So, this is an absurd claim for me. Not that I'm anti-AI. Again, I support AI, at least the ethical usage or use cases of AI. But 5 billion? Really? I think she claimed earlier that in the video that there's already 1 billion. Don't quote me on that. I forget what the real number was. But let's say 1 billion users now in 2026. So for them to reach 5 billion by 2031, they would need what? Close to a billion new users annually, right? You know, rounded, with rounding errors, of course. But I want to know where they are getting their numbers, since if I look out here outside the window and see people, walking on the streets, really, these people, half of them will be using AI. Really, the taxi driver. Okay, taxi drivers here in the Philippines, yeah, maybe Grab, which is the equivalent of Uber here in Southeast Asia. They use mapping technology, right? And it uses AI to map out the best route from one point to another. Yeah, that uses AI. So Grab users are directly, or Grab drivers are directly AI users. Okay. Taxi drivers. Maybe some of them use mapping technologies, Google Maps or Waze, but not all of them. Let's move down a bit further. Bus drivers, jeepney drivers, tricycle drivers. For people who aren't aware of what these are, these are the modes of public transportation here in the Philippines. The common ones, you would see jeepneys here, if you imagine a small jeep, elongate it, make it long, and it could actually sit around, on average, maybe 10 people aside, maybe 20 people plus, 20 to 30 people per jeep. So these jeepney drivers absolutely don't have a need for AI. Service workers, garbage collectors. I mean, imagine this in the global south, okay? Not in the first world economies like or advanced economies like the US or the Europe. Like, this is very different in the global south. These are people who are below the usually below the poverty line and barely make it through their everyday lives. And the barber, sales lady, like these people make up a lot of a huge majority of the population here in the Philippines. And that's just counting the Philippines. Again, I looked up on Google right before this video, and the statistics say that around 40 to 50% of the global population is below the poverty line. Like, if we're already 8 billion people, that's 4 billion people, right? So, if that trend continues, like in 2031, 9 billion people, half of that are below the poverty line. So, around 4.5. Let's be conservative, right? Let's say 4 billion people. So maybe like 9 billion minus 4 billion people. So you would have to make sure that everyone above the poverty line is using AI. And not only using AI, paying for AI. How does that work? Now, let's see. Some people who are above the poverty line, maybe lower income people, lower income or lower middle income bracket. I couldn't imagine. Like, maybe their companies are using AI, but for example, even business owners. My mom is a business owner, and she's just selling, I don't know, merchandise. She doesn't need AI. She absolutely doesn't need AI. I mean, as a tech person, I've actually tried to convince her through the years to actually adopt technology. But now that I'm more, let's say, wise, or more mature, I realize now that it doesn't really make sense for her to actually adopt technology, because her market or target market is local. She's actually content with that. And that's fine. And I've been thinking about this actually this past week. Why have we been made to believe that everything needs to scale 10x, 100x? Why can't we allow, small businesses like my mother's, like the coffee shop on the corner of the street, or the small Chinese restaurant here in Metro Manila in Binondo? Why can't we leave them be? Because they're content. They're living life comfortably. They don't need to scale their businesses to global heights. They don't need to globalize. They don't need to actually, build franchises all over the country. They just need this business to actually thrive, supported by the local community. And that's fine, right? What's wrong with that? Like, I find joy in finding or in discovering restaurants, small restaurants, especially here in our area, that just, serving good food. And what I've seen happen, when a good thing, often when they try to scale it by, creating a chain of restaurants, of franchises of the concept, the quality usually suffers. And like, there's one example here, a coffee shop before that we actually loved, and it's called Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, CBTL. And we actually supported and loved the coffee, the food. And now it was bought by the Jollibee, if you're familiar, Jollibee Food Group. So they bought CBTL, and from then on, the quality just isn't there anymore. So we rarely go to CBTL. For coffee shops, I'd rather go to small local coffee shops. There are a few here in our area, but you know what I mean. Like, do we really need to grow this business into something that's going to compete globally? No. Like, why? I mean, there are businesses that are actually made for that, and that's also fine. But not everything should be like that. I'm rambling here, but I hope you're getting my point here. That these businesses don't need AI. Why would a coffee shop need AI? A small coffee shop, local coffee shop, a barber shop, just a few blocks away. Why would that need AI? What, to simulate someone's haircut? Like, here, I think, at least in our area, a haircut costs what, 150 pesos, which is more or less, actually, kinda about $3. That's a $3 haircut. So why would you need AI for that? And it actually goes back to what I'm saying earlier, that the global south is being left out of the conversation regarding AI. And even in considering the projections that they have in terms of, again, the Lisa's projection that there will be 5 billion people who would be using AI by 2031. Are they considering global south right now? Or in that projection? Probably not, right? And again, like, we have 40 to 50% of people under the poverty line. So how does that work, right? So yeah, something to think about, right? People are saying, including myself, that AI is in the bubble, and this is one of the reasons. And worse, not only is AI in a bubble, but tech CEOs are themselves are inside their own, I don't know, bubble. They have their own bubble. They have their own world. And like, what the hell do they think is happening in the world? Like, are they thinking that everyone is similar to them? I mean, I know, we know actually, we have friends who are quite rich, but not dollar billionaire rich. They're doing well, and they've been brought up in privilege, and they themselves have this kind of bubble that they can't relate with the common Filipino. Like, they expect, or they don't understand why some people do it this way. Why are they purchasing things that way? Their purchasing behavior. Like, of course you don't know, because you haven't been exposed to the hardships that they're dealing with. So it's hard to understand. And I think that's also what's happening with these tech CEOs, especially because these CEOs are living in an advanced economy, especially in the US. So yeah, I'm going to end there. And yeah, that's going to be a preview of what you will be expecting in this podcast. Just things that I try to reflect on, and maybe share some good news, or maybe advancements in AI that I could share with you, and maybe some learnings that I could try to explain using this platform. Anyway, thank you for watching the first episode of my podcast, the AI Guardrail, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.